Hello, Cosmy here today. We're going to be reacting to Internet Historian Man in Cave. Don't know how I missed this one. I was told by a few people that I need to watch it. So we're going to watch it. It's an hour long. I think the only other video an hour long is his pirate video. So hopefully this is good. Knowing Internet Historian, it's going to be a blast.
Sorry for the re-upload, fellas. The
Oh yeah, this is a re-upload.
original got copy struck. RIP.
By what? What? If anybody knows why the old video got copyright strike, can you tell me why? Because hearing Internet Historian like getting any of his videos copyright strike just is hard to believe because he's so fucking careful. So,
But don't worry, we are working on new main channel videos. Here's a sample of the timelines. In the meanwhile, Incognito mode, which has a new video about every 6 weeks, and Story mode, which has a new video about every 4 weeks. Thank you for watching.
maybe I should go. I haven't seen his story mode videos.
Second
Maybe I
time.
should go check them out. The phone. Wait. Wait. Why is it Why can't I? No. Wait. Why can't I? Oh, there we go. It's bugged. Oh, and I wanted to read that. My apologies. I'm having a stroke. This video meets the certain of legal fair use for those YouTube guidelines. No. Following is in nature. All images and media have been sourced from public record. Okay. Thank you, in the story. Harassment towards its future in the video. Please behave yourself. Yeah, no harassing people. I know how much the internet likes doing that these days. Like, someone fumbles a word or takes the wrong step down the alleyway and they're being harassed. God knows what.
In the state of Kentucky, there is a cave
Yes.
that every now and then demands a sacrifice. January 30th, 1925. A man walks towards the cave with a kerosene lamp in his hand. He hangs up his jacket and ducks into a 5-foot opening. The inside of the cave is small. He has to go on hands and knees, crawling through passages of sharp stone and choking dust. Then down a chute he had cleared.
I know a lot of people wouldn't do this, but I would. I don't have the fear of doing these types of things. Like, this is something I see myself doing. Like, if you hand me like a lantern and it was like, hey, go in that cave and explore real fast, I would probably do it. I just like the thrill. It's the thrill of the unknown. Like, a lot of people are scared of the unknown. I'm not. I want to charge into it because you just never know.
Cleared out months earlier. All of the daylight is gone from here, and this lantern is his only source of light. Ignoring the
Look, I respect it, but you should probably prepare just in case. You shouldn't bring one light source. But, you know, we live on the edge.
limestone rocks perched directly above him. He is now 100 feet in, and here he reaches the turnaround room. Now, they call this the turnaround room because this is the juncture where even experienced cavers say, no thanks, and turn
No.
around. Because to continue on means going through this. The squeeze. A gap in the stone of only 9 inches.
I know people don't know a lot about me, but I'm like really small in real life. Like, I'm not a tall or big person at all. I can easily fit through that. Like 9 inches, like, yeah, that I'm easily going through that.
For reference, here's a subway sub. Going through, he would look exactly like this. His arm.
Yeah, I can easily make it through that, no problem.
will need to be completely at their side, and he will need to
I
exhale
respect this man.
so that he can reduce the size of his torso. Gradually, bit by bit, he disappears into the hole. His clothes are caught on sharp gypsum crystals, hooking into him and threatening to hold him in place. Using just his feet, he pushes himself forward. He reaches a wider opening at the other side.
Oh my god.
Then crawls forward towards a ledge. Lit by the lamp is a drop about twice his height. There's already a rope here. He gently climbs down. His worn-out leather shoes touch the ground. This is as far as he can go, and it is time for work to begin. What he is working on is another opening. At the moment, it's too small for anyone to fit through, but he will chip away at it until he can shove himself right through the other side. Because on the other side is this, an otherworldly cave structure dripping with pristine white crystals.
Whoa.
Every day for months, he has been removing rocks from this crevice. To him, this is all just routine. So he shimmies further into the gap, his body contorting to the shape of the crevice as he wriggles his way in. The walls becoming so tight that he can no longer use his arms. Then, about halfway, he stops. The lantern. It's starting to dim. He will need to go all the way back to the surface to refuel the thing. He sighs. He slowly shuffles back out, pushing the lantern with his shoulder. Then, oh no, ding, crack, darkness.
Ooh.
He has knocked over the lamp, and it has broken.
Ooh.
The man breathed deeply and relaxed. He had been in worse situations before, and he was confident he could navigate his way to the surface through feel alone. He searches around with his feet to find something he can push against.
I have, even in pitch blackness, like, I have really good map memory. I could probably easily get out of this situation. Like, it's mostly muscle memory at this point for this guy, though.
There's something, he thinks. But what he doesn't know is that he's pressing against a loose rock on the ceiling. As soon as he puts his weight against it, it comes free. A solid piece weighing 15 kilograms lands directly on...
33 pounds? Holy shit. This poor motherfucker.
His ankle. It aches. But he's okay. It doesn't feel as though his ankle is broken, just badly bruised and caught underneath the rock. So he shuffles to move the rock away. Suddenly, gravel. A lot of gravel. It falls onto his feet, his legs, his torso, and the weight of it all forced the rock harder down onto his foot and locks it in place. Every time he tries to move, more rubble falls, holding him tighter. He is stuck. This is Sand Cave. This man is Floyd Collins. He is trapped in absolute darkness, 60 feet deep below the earth, all of his limbs held in place at the very bottom of this. But before I tell you what happens next, ad time. Speaking of people trapped in a cave, World of Tanks. World of Tanks.
Wow. Out of all the ads I was expecting, World of Tanks? Really?
It's not only the best game I have ever played, it is the only game I have ever played. It's
Never
like
played
cars, but tanks. Picture this. You're a hot new T-34-85M, and you've just joined the battle because some Cromwell B tank-bagged your entire family. It's time for revenge. You must use strategy. You must use stealth. You must use your wits to defeat your enemies. Use long range or short range. It's available on console, but I want you to get it on PC. Imagine a world war, but there are tanks involved this time. Yeah, now you're getting it. When you've seen as many messed up tanks as I have, you get a little cynical about the world. My God, I'm gonna be sick. Look at all the different tanks. You can collectomize and customize them all. Massive battles where you can constantly team kill and ruin other people's good time.
What the f***? I'm on your f***ing
Design engine is historically accurate, especially the Japanese robot tanks. Ooh, look, the tanks are kissing. Progressive. Use the invite code TANKMANIA and get the Excelsior. 250k credits. Other stuff. Go to the link in the description and use the invite code TANKMANIA. Here's what you do. Get World of Tanks. Put that on one screen.
Work still?
Then, on a second monitor, you'll watch the next hour of this video while you play the game. Perfection. I'm contractually obliged to say thank you for being a friend.
Thank you for being
Tank's empty, kid. Go on without me. No, use your repair consumable. It's too late, kid. Take care of my family for me. No. Get it. Add Collins is still in the dark.
Oh,
unable
God, I
to
forgot.
move. He can feel the sharp crystals on the ground poking into his back. The ice melts above him, traces across the ceiling, and drips directly onto his face. He would shield himself against the dripping, except that his right arm is wedged against the roof of the cave, and his left is stuck in place underneath his torso. The cold water dripping onto him pools underneath him. Floyd took slow, steady breaths in the concentrated dark. When he did attempt to shuffle, more gravel and rocks would tumble from above and pile onto his feet, so nothing would work. He raked his fingers against the wall until blood pooled underneath his nails, and he realized that there was only one option left. Call out for help. But wait. Who is Floyd, and why did he even go into a dangerous cave?
Yeah, that's a
Floyd
really good
started
question,
his
actually.
caving career at the tender age of 6. Growing up, exploring the caves of Kentucky was practically all he did. He would go off on his own, disappearing into the caves for many hours at a time. Have you seen that movie, The Descent? It was a lot like that. He grew up and he became...
I think that movie was about, like, they go and explore this, well, they take their friends and they're like, oh, this cave has been explored before, but they actually, I think, like, two of them, like, the two, like, main, like, cave explorers actually take them to a cave that was never explored before. Well, it was, but it wasn't. There was, like, no maps of it. Then I think, like, all of them die except for, like, 2. I think, like, 2 people make it out. I barely remember it.
Broiled in the Kentucky Cave Wars. Now, there's way too much to go into here, but the summary version is, there's this huge network of interconnected caves called Mammoth Caves. It's actually the largest cave system in the world. And there's a city right in the middle of it. Cave City, real name. So of course, there are dozens of cave entrances on private property all over the place. Now, farmland in this region has very poor soil, and things do not grow well here. So, cave tourism as a source of income quickly became the prominent thing. However, a problem. There are a very large number of caves, but there are only a limited number of tourists. So competition rapidly escalated. Visit my cave. No. Visit my cave. Big signs were erected saying, tourists, come to me. Mine is definitely open. Mine is the best. But then competitors would respond by saying, hey, by the way, we're open, but don't go to that one over there. It's really shitty. In fact, it's dangerous. This kept going further. By the end, they were blocking off the trail to each other's property.
Bro, if someone told me the cave over there is dangerous, I'm instantly going to it. I gotta see what's up.
Beating each other in the streets and hiring people called cappers who would dress up as policemen and tell tourists, no, you can't go in there. That one? No, it's illegal. Despite the fierce competition, Floyd found a cave on his property and he started advertising it to tourists. Of course, very few came. All right, he thought, what if I found something really special and unique? Then surely people would have to come to my cave to see it. So He kept exploring and
I
exploring
respect the hustle.
until he found this hollow. It was filled with big gypsum crystals, and when you were in there, it felt like a completely alien world. But it was barely accessible. This small tunnel is the only way in. He would need to dig for months to open it up to tourists, but he knew he could do it. Back to the competition. They knew the value of this cave. They knew the potential, they wanted it for themselves, and they wanted Collins gone. A few months prior, a group of 5 men showed up to his farm unannounced.
Ah, hand over that lease, Floyd.
They said. Floyd, of course, refused. So they turned to violence, knocking him down and savaging the helpless man until Homer, Floyd's brother, came running out of the house with a shotgun. But Floyd was not deterred.
Fucking
He spent 12 hours a day,
Yeah,
every
you
day, for
you
months,
walked with it. You
clearing gravel and stone, chipping away at
That's
that
just fucked
hassle.
up.
He would open it up to tourists, make his cave an incredible attraction, and make his dreams come true.
You got this, kid. You can do whatever your heart desires. Oh, yeah, I
So
forgot.
there's Floyd in the
He's
dark,
out trapped.
yelling out for help, yelling into the pitch black. After a while, his voice would give out, and he would have to sleep to recuperate. He would then wake sometime later, remember where he is, and begin yelling again for help. Here he remained in the dark for the next 23 hours.
Only 12 minutes in the video.
Quickly you might wonder, how come no one's come for him after 23?
Well, if you think about it, if his family knows that he usually goes in the cave for hours at a time, it would make sense that him being missing for that long, it wouldn't pose any red flags. That seems actually a little normal. So, like, yeah.
3 hours. Well, Sand Cave resides on a 200-acre farm. There are several homes on this property with other families. One of them, of course, is Colin's house, where Floyd's father, Lee, resides. Now, Lee and Floyd constantly get into fights about how to run things. Lee wants his son to concentrate on farming, and Floyd wants to concentrate on cave tourism. Arguments would often get heated. And Lee was also a bit of a drunk. It was doubtful that he would even notice if his son Floyd was missing.
Oh, my apologies. His father just doesn't give a fuck about him. Oh, wow. Had his whole woman speech about his family, but no, his father's like good drunk. Okay.
Also not helping things, Floyd regularly lodged at 2 other homes on the farm. So when he didn't return to one host, they would presume that he was staying with the other. And, even worse still, he was known to occasionally sleep in the cave, doing stints of up to 30 hours in there without resurfacing. Regardless, around the 23-hour mark, a few locals started to suspect that, hey, something might be wrong, and they went to check up on him. And here, they spotted his jacket still hung up. Unusual. They went deeper. However, there was only one person small enough to make it as far as the turnaround room. This was a 17-year-old Jewel Estes. He refused to go into the squeeze, but if he yelled, Floyd would probably hear him. Floyd! And Collins yelled back.
Yes, I'm here.
Send help.
Estes emerges from the cave.
Okay, we know he's trapped, and we know where he is.
So, a whole troop of locals show up. Out of my way. Say a bunch of men who would confidently charge into the cave. But once they reached the final squeeze...
Nope. Nope. Nope.
They would charge straight back out again, saying things like,
I don't even blame them. You have to be someone like me. You have to just be crazy enough to do it. Like, I would do it just because, this motherfucker needs help. What's the chances the same thing happens to you? Like, they're not zero, but, take them.
There's no way any man could fit in there.
out of my way, they would say as they were heading in the reverse direction. So a few more hours passed. Word would spread around Cave City and the neighboring areas. Slowly, a crowd formed outside Sand Cave.
Well, he got the audience he wanted.
Over in Louisville, Floyd's 22-year-old brother, Homer, he gets a phone call.
Hello? I see. My brother. He's trapped in a cave? I'm on my way.
Now
Homer
that's a
jumps on a
brother.
coach and makes his way to Floyd's cave.
If my sibling was trapped in a cave,
Homer
I'd be
struts up to the
instantly
scene.
there.
He walks past the growing crowd of unhelpful onlookers and makes a beeline for the cave to save his brother. In he goes, down the chute, through the narrowing passages, down on his hands and knees towards the turnaround room. And when he arrives, he does not hesitate. He squeezes into the hole, scrambles his way through to the ledge on the other side. He sees Floyd below and slides down to meet him.
Floyd!
Sup?
Right, probably wasn't that casual.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank God you're here.
Homer took a moment to
Sup?
shine his light around the area and assess the situation. It was not good. This rock formation is going to prove almost impossible to work around. All right, so let's have a look. Floyd is here. The rock is here, pinning his ankle. He's surrounded by rubble, and there's a pocket of gravel above him ready to fall. However, because this opening is so small, there are only two viable ways of reaching Floyd and that gravel. Option 1, the most obvious, feet first. But if you do this, you have to kind of squat, and your own torso obstructs access to the rubble. Otherwise, option 2, come down head first. That will give you better access, but you're trying to move hundreds of pounds of gravel upside down. Worse yet, there's barely an inch around Collins on either side, so good luck getting your arm down near Floyd's ankle to actually free him from the wedged rock. Homer whips around and yells.
Quickly, some food and drink.
They send it through. But first, Homer gives Floyd a liter of coffee to warm him up. Then, as many sausage sandwiches as he can
A
stomach.
fucking liter of coffee. Holy shit.
He manages to down 9 of them.
Well, if you think about it, a liter of coffee, 9 sausages. It's probably extremely cold in that cave. He's probably wet as well because water will trickle down. Yeah, no. This adds up.
Dietary advice has changed since the 1920s.
Feeling better?
Much better.
It's
Then
comfort
Homer
food.
went to task. He began removing rocks and gravel, tiny scoop at a time, with the help of an old syrup can.
There's the bucket. Of the can.
For the next 8
47
hours he toiled, first with hands, then, once enough was cleared, using a crowbar to scoop behind his brother, scraping away sharp protrusions as he went. It was slow progress. Virtually futile. While holding up his body weight with one arm, he would have to use the other to scoop away gravel. Then watch as new gravel would suddenly fall from above and undo all the work. Homer stayed for as long as he could, but after several hours, he was ragged. His teeth chattered uncontrollably, his lungs choked with dust, and the skin on his fingers shredded from the rubble. However, something new. By the time Homer reached outside, he was surprised to see a mob of approximately 100 men and women standing around, drinking, squabbling, and talking big game about how they too were going to save Floyd. The press was also present to help people gawk from afar. Homer shunned them all and rested up in a small tent in front of the cave. Strangers immediately crowded around him to ask innocent but, frankly, frustrating questions and offer unsolicited, obvious advice as well as wildly impractical solutions. Listen, you just have to untie his shoes. Free the foot, free the man, right, fellas?
No. Let's hire a contortionist. We get a hammer and a chisel. We'll have him back by supper.
We should jerk him off, right, guys? All right, I made that third guy up, but you get the idea. A lot of these guys are drunk, by the way, so the discussions very quickly went from 0 to 100. Hey, new idea. How about dynamite? We'll simply
the dynamite guy is get him the fuck away from the cave. The motherfucker about to It collapsed the whole cave with the motherfucker in it.
Throw him out. One group formed, insisting it was a great idea, and another saying, no, the explosion will kill him, and the weight of the new rocks will surely crush him.
Yeah,
They
like,
shouted at each other for a while, until someone suggested, hey, how about gas torches? We can use acetylene torches to cut through the rock and make the hole bigger. No, that'll cook him, or the gas will fill the cave and kill everyone.
yeah, I was supposed to say carbon dioxide would probably kill everybody in the room.
Inside. They fought over that too. But by far the most common suggestion.
The best way right now is to dig him out or find the location, like dig from above, like find where above he is and dig downwards from dig straight down. I think those are the only two, because it's what, 1925 at the moment. Those are like your two best options. Actually, they're your only options. I can't think of anything else. Like the digging straight down one sounds idiotic though, because if you fuck up, you're gonna kill him. Like it's just a lot of problems. A lot of problems here.
Was to simply cut off the foot. Never mind that the foot itself was unreachable.
And there's another problem. With so much heavy weight on his lower, like on his legs, without moving them or anything, there's probably blood is probably clotting in his legs. So even if they do manage to get him out, he's gonna die from a major blood clot because it'll dislodge from his leg. So, and it's 1925. I'm pretty sure there's like nothing they can do about it either. Like the technology to deal with that is not developed yet. So even if they do get him out, I think he would probably still die. I think he dies at the end of this. I hope I'm wrong and it's like this miracle fucking like they get him out, he's okay, because that would be the good ending. But there's so many things that's probably gonna kill him here. If not, he's probably gonna have an affected foot, because if that rock is like broke his leg and stuff, there's just so many issues he's going to have, like so many problems.
And never mind that he'd lose so much blood he might not make it back to the surface. And never minding even more that Floyd was strongly reluctant to the idea.
Whatever you do, don't cut my foot off.
Homer could have easily ignored all of this
And
point.
how did he even cut his foot off anyways? That's not even possible. You'd have to be on the other side of him. They can't do that. Cutting his foot off is not, it wouldn't even help the situation.
Bickering, except that not one of them would just brave the damn cave and continue shoveling away the gravel. The formula was always the same. Bold, fearless men would strut into the cave with sandwiches and blankets, then reach the turnaround room and immediately lose their nerve, then dump it all outside of the hole, and then return back outside and go, oh, absolutely. No, he says, thanks for the food. Thank you so much. Yum, yum. No one would go through that squeeze. Dozens more men would try. All of them would fail.
Oh my
February
God.
2nd, 9 a.m. So far, Homer has been the only person who has been face to face with Floyd. And that would continue to be true until here we are at the Louisville Courier. There's a spirited young newshawk named William Miller. He's talking to his boss, and he's trying to convince him that it's a great idea for him to cover the story of the man trapped in the cave.
Listen up, boss. I'm hearing talk of a man in a cave. He's stuck down there, and I want to get down there too. Get to the nitty-gritty, you hear?
This is an opportunity for some good PR, Miller. I'm in. But I want us to sponsor that rescue. Picture this. Man saved from cave by Louisville Courier, the finest newspaper in the state. That'll drum up plenty of interest.
24-carat idea, boss. I'll make it happen. I'll get down there toot sweet.
So off Miller goes to Floyd's cave. Back over at the cave, Homer is sitting outside trying to recuperate. As Miller wanders up, Homer is not interested in giving an interview. He wants someone to help. So as Miller asks questions, Homer tries his best to show contempt.
Sure.
Frustrated, Homer bluntly says,
Listen, you want more information? The hole's right behind me. Why don't you go take a look yourself?
Miller thinks for a moment, then says, yeah, all right. He grabs a lantern and crouches down to enter the cave. As he walked, cold water filled his shoes. He was stepping in newly formed puddles. That water is coming from the inside of the cave as the temperature slowly increases and the frost inside melts. The stable environment of the cave is starting to change. That is thanks in no small part to the growing crowd of Gawkers. To stay warm, they were building fires and hanging around the entrance of the cave to shelter from the elements.
Just start
But
executing
nonetheless,
anybody on my
Miller
land.
presses on, and all that's left is that final squeeze, and he's there. He stops. He takes a moment and decides to call out to Floyd.
Floyd!
Hearing there is someone on the other side, he feels ashamed not to try. Into the dark he went, through the 9-inch squeeze.
I respect this guy.
The crystal gypsum cuts into his elbows and tugs at his clothes. He gets snagged. He's spluttering through the pools of muddy water. He stops, collects himself, and pushes on. He can barely inhale. If he gets stuck in here, he can only hope that someone else can come in from behind and pull him out by the legs. But eventually, he makes it through. Fantastic. He is now on his belly, looking down at Floyd. He sat right next to Floyd, ready to interview him. But Floyd didn't really answer any of his questions. At the moment, he is sitting in a pool of water that is 12 degrees, slowly sapping his body temperature. He is dying from exposure. The cold is diminishing Floyd's mental faculties, and he can barely make sentences. There's nothing Miller can do, so he hurriedly turns around. He worked his way back through the squeeze, past the turnaround room, and out into the daylight. Homer turns to Miller. Proof that he had made it all the way to Floyd is soaked onto his mud-stained clothes. No longer frustrated with the young reporter, instead, he excitedly runs over to him.
You and me. Together, we can get Floyd out of there.
Now, there were two people who could help rescue Floyd.
Let's go, the dream team.
Now, helping
only
with the
two half-assed.
rescue was not the only thing that Miller did for Floyd. Perhaps even more crucially, his reporting was responsible for turning Floyd into a nationwide story. Miller took interviews, relayed first-person accounts, and would spend many hours with Floyd himself in that cave. He gave an insight into the story that only a first-person account could, and in turn gave the public a figure who they would deeply relate to. Updates to the story would be printed in over 1,000 local and national newspapers. You couldn't escape it. It was also the era when radio became a regular feature for regular Americans. Radio allowed something new: hourly updates, letting people get engrossed into the story. So, mostly thanks to Miller, the story of Floyd over the next week would grow and grow. And everybody wanted to know, will this man make it? Back outside the cave, someone new entered the story. Robert Burton. He would become the third man to reach Floyd, a firefighter from Louisville. Thin framed, but muscular. He got scratched up pretty good and soaked by the pooling water. But he made it through with little fuss, and he confidently lowered himself down to Floyd's position. It was not an optimistic sight. Floyd's condition was deteriorating.
Well, we've got a heck of a problem here, but I think I can get you out with a rope.
Floyd nods in approval.
Go on.
We might just pull your bloody leg off.
Just pull my leg off then. Get me out of here.
Burton returned to the surface and faced the crowd. He announced,
We will attempt a rope pull.
I don't know if that's a good idea. You're just gonna tear his foot off.
"Yeah, hold on. What about the sharp rocks? Rake him through all that and he'll be..."
I think in my, like, if you think about this logically, a rope pull is actually a really bad idea, because if he's trapped that much, like if there's that much weight on him, you'll just pull him in half or you'll rupture his organs. Because you pull on him so hard, you'll start tearing the organs inside of him. So this would just not work. Like, I like the idea. Like, he's trying to help, but he's not thinking it through.
Barely be a body left to bring to the surface. A physician stepped forward with authority. The ligaments in the foot are strong, but if you pull on the torso without a harness, all you'll likely do is tear his internal organs. But
Yeah,
Floyd is dying of
exactly. He
exposure
gets
down
it.
there. The situation is becoming desperate. Burden put caution to the side.
What a harness would do is if you would pull without one, instead of the harness would take some of the wow, I wish my brain wasn't dying. I would explain this better. Let's just say a harness would it's more of like a, oh my god, why am I having such a brain fog? Because I know what it is. You know what? Don't worry about it. Let's just say a harness would just make it better. I don't know why I'm having like a mental brain problem with the
The
word.
time for strategy is over. Now we try brute force.
It takes him 4 hours to come up with his idea. When was the last time he was fed? Under the sea.
Floyd!
I don't understand why Floyd didn't make the first hole safer. The hole everyone is too scared to go in the first place. I don't know why he didn't start there first. Like, it would have been, like, strategically would have been a better idea.
We're here! We're gonna get you out of here!
After 79 hours in the cold water, he is delirious, fading in and out of consciousness.
My dude living on borrowed time.
I'm
at
gonna
this point.
put the special harness around you. Burden and Miller, they're here too. We got 3 more boys right up the cave.
Oh,
and
they
they're
got a
already-
harness. Okay, you know what? This might be okay. This might
pull
work
as hard
out.
as they can to get you out of
No,
here.
well,
Floyd
wait till
was
you
frightened.
mention. I lied.
Not gonna
This is
lie.
not gonna work.
It's gonna hurt.
No one knew quite how this would go. Floyd was given some food, some coffee, a large swig of whiskey, and a sedative. That sedative would keep him calm if his ankle bone is snapped or the skin on his foot is peeled off. Floyd took the opportunity to appreciate being surrounded by friends and family.
Go on. Do it.
All right, strap him up.
Homer attached a harness. He ties on the rope. Miller gives the signal.
Ready?
Burden gives the final all clear.
Ready?
Everybody braced for the tug of war. Cave versus man. The winner gets Floyd.
3,
The widow gets Floyd.
2,
This one goes to the cave, sadly.
1.
Pull!
The force of 6 men pulled against the clutches of the cave. Floyd began to scream. His body was being pulled up from the rubble. The gravel was beginning to shift. Burden's calls echo through the cave.
Pull harder!
Floyd screamed harder as well. All right, so Floyd is trapped laying down like this. But the pulling of the rope wrenches him up like this.
I was just about to say, I wish I paused earlier because I was thinking the whole time this is not gonna work because they're pulling from such a high angle. We're just pulling him up against the rock. It would have to be more straight. It would have to be more straight this way. The pull would have to be this way. When you pull up this way, you're trapping him between these 2 rocks, and you're literally not gonna get him anywhere. So this would never work. It would probably work better. This was not enough room if we had a guy standing here who was pulling this way while the others were pulling upwards.
His torso was being compressed and bent against the ceiling of the trap. It would kill him. Floyd's screaming intensified. and through gasps was begging them to stop. But it did not stop. The agony continued, on and on, with no progress.
Enough! Enough! You guys are killing him!
Homer quickly spun around and started pulling against the other men. He threw his legs onto the rocks and propelled himself backwards, 1 man versus 5.
I said stop!
Coursing with adrenaline, he pulled the rope free from their clasp. The tug of war was over. The cave had won. Floyd fell back down. Homer, Miller, Burden, and the other 3 men were flat on their backs, panting for breath. The cave would not let this man go.
The cave
The futility of the situation sank in, and all they could do was leave for now and rest. Outside, the number of spectators had increased to 200. They buzzed and asked useless questions, and Homer walked dejectedly past them. He sat by thinking what he could do. The cause seemed hopeless.
Homer?
Then, someone showed up who could turn things around. He looked up to see a childhood friend of both his and Floyd's, Johnny Gerald. He was just the man for the job. He was an experienced caver, and he was an experienced cave-trapped person rescuer.
All right.
Oh!
Let me go see him. Well, look who it is.
Floyd perked up immediately, thrilled to see Gerald. The sparkle from Floyd's gold tooth could be seen in his smile.
All right, let's see what we can do.
Gerald jumped down. And then, for the next 3 hours, Gerald went back to the original plan of digging away the rocks. His stamina was good, and progress was surprisingly good as well. For several more hours, he continued, just moving stone after stone. New one would fall in its place, and he'd move that one too. By midnight, he had enough room to shift position and clear some of the gravel that was at each side of Floyd's body. Gerald would spend several more hours scooping. And it worked.
Is he gonna make it out alive?
Slowly, more and more of Floyd's body was coming free from the rubble. The lower shoulders,
You can always
his
count on
chest,
your
even his
hips
hips and
best friend to
thighs.
save you.
It was incredible progress, but Gerald wasn't done yet. He kept going until practically all of the rubble, except a few harder to reach piles down by his legs, remained. The relief from the weight made it significantly easier for Floyd to breathe and flex his limbs. Over the course of those few hours, Gerald managed to scoop away more than 1,000 pounds of debris. But there was still a lot more.
Holy shit. This guy's a fucking hero.
More to go. And that rock by Floyd's foot was still holding him in place. By 2 a.m., Gerald was spent. He needed rest, and he was ready to head back outside.
Floyd, tomorrow, you're gonna be a free man.
Hog.
Now
Let's
here you
go.
might think that things will become straightforward. They did not. Now that that space had been cleared, Burden became convinced that if he could get down that passage again, he could free Floyd with another rope pull.
No.
Fate deciding with
No, don't let that motherfucker anywhere near this
both
cave.
feet or just one. So Burden marches up to the cave once again, but when he tried to enter, they shoved him in the other direction. The crowd was acting as a sort of phalanx, and anyone who tried to get in was told to get lost. They had been specifically instructed to not
crowd
let
is actually useful
anyone
for
in,
once.
and they were especially opposed to Burden making another rope pull after word spread about the disaster of the first attempt. He tried to reason with them,
Let me try the rope pull again. It'll work this time.
but they would not hear it. Oof! Of the 3 other people
Wow,
who
they got
could
an
reach
actual
him,
picture?
Gerald and Homer are out exhausted and sick, which leaves only Miller, who is tied up with work. With Burden barred from entering, Floyd was left on his own, wondering why it was that no one would visit him.
Hello? Is anyone there? Help! Hey! Anyone out there?
Now, the work Miller was doing was handing over reports to his boss about Sand Cave. Those reports would be fed through the news grapevine to the Associated Press, and the Associated Press would send that out to its very large affiliate network. The word was spreading about Floyd. By afternoon, Miller was done with his work and he hurried back to the cave. So he gets inside and, His eyes didn't have to work half as hard to adjust to the dark. Someone had installed electric lights from the entrance right all the way down to Floyd. Miller popped down to the lower level.
Wow.
Floyd, fancy seeing you here, buddy.
When Miller reached Floyd, he took the final bulb and attached it to his collar to keep him warm. Then, reusing that syrup tin, he started offloading gravel into buckets. Those buckets were then passed up and down the cabin, like an assembly line. And so it went on for the next few hours, until he was too tired and needed to rest. Miller then took some time to have a bit of a one-on-one with Floyd. He said, "You know, there are a lot of people in the news that are reading about you and have you in their prayers. Is there anything you want me to relay to them?" Floyd had been in that cave for over 100 hours now, and seeing everyone working together, Floyd was overcome with a sense of hope and relief. Floyd wanted to pass on a message. Here is what he is quoted in the newspaper.
I believed I would go to heaven. I can feel that I'm to be taken out alive and with both my feet. I kept thinking, what would happen if the rock above me would fall? It caused me to shudder. I kept thinking to drive my mind to something else,
Wow,
but it wasn't much
sad
use.
for this guy.
I couldn't do much to help those who came to
no
help
one
me,
should ever be in this
but I knew
situation.
that a lot of people were willing to do all in their power. It gave me courage. Tuesday morning, I thought to myself, 4 days down here, and no nearer freedom than I was on the first day. How will it end? Will I get out? I couldn't think of it. I have faced death before. It doesn't frighten me, but it is so long. Tell them I am not going to give up. Tell them I'm going to fight and be patient and never forget them.
Wow. Can't see but like 2 tears right now. See, everyone should live like this. Don't be scared of death. People who run from death never truly live. That doesn't mean you should go out and search for it, but when the day comes, just accept it. Take your last deep breath. It's gonna be okay.
Meanwhile, news of the incident kept growing. The entire country was captivated by Floyd's story. Crowds huddled around newspaper stands each morning and afternoon, waiting to get any new drips of information. It became a water cooler topic. Did you catch the latest episode of Game of Caves? He had the prayer power of practically every church in the county. Even the upper echelons of government were keeping tabs on Floyd. Congress halted session to get their little updates, and even the president, Calvin Coolidge, took a glancing interest. By the end, the Floyd Collins incident would explode into the third largest non-political story between World War I and World War II. All of this excitement brought an inundation of people to Cave City. Old population, 690. Yawn. New population, 10,000. The bank vaults ran empty as people withdrew cash to spend around town, but they wouldn't have much to spend it on because restaurants didn't even have enough stock to feed all the new customers. Practically every hotel room in the county was taken, so residents capitalized with a 1920s version of Airbnb and charged outrageous fees to offer places to sleep on their bedroom floor or in mattress-lined bathtubs. And 4,500 automobiles impatiently sat, backed up for 2 miles from 20 different states to drive onto the Collins farm, churning up all the pristine green fields with their tires and turning them into brown muck paddocks. Deep below all those tourists, there's Miller, trying to free Floyd. Alright, a little bit of setup. Floyd, Miller, some remaining rubble, rock. For anyone to lift the rock by hand would be impossible because Floyd's body obstructs the hole. Miller grabs a crowbar and shoves it through the gap. Now he's going to lever it off Floyd's foot. Cool. The crowbar is now primed in place. Next, he takes a jack. He positions it on top of the crowbar so that it will be forced against the ceiling. However, problem. That jack is too big. It doesn't fit. Miller yells up the tunnel for a smaller one, but this took some time. And when it arrived, too small, won't reach the ceiling. But instead of sending for another one, Miller takes 2 blocks of wood and bolsters them underneath the crowbar. Right, so the crowbar now sits higher, it fulcrums against the blocks, and the jack is sitting on top. All Miller has to do is expand the jack, which he will do using this spanner, holding it at the very tips of his fingers. Sounds easy. It's not. But that's the plan. Let's get him out of there. He turned the wrench, the jack expanded, and the crowbar took strain. The whole thing slid apart with a pang. Floyd wasn't hurt, but Miller was contorting and exerting his whole body from back to fingertip. They tried again. Same result. Undeterred, Miller caught his breath and gave it another shot. He slowly turned the jack. Pressure building. And this time, Miller could feel the rock move. It bloody moved. He kept turning the wrench and the rock moved a little more. His hands were shaking, knees weak, his arms are heavy.
Oh my god.
Pang. One of the wood blocks flew out. It all scattered apart. The rock painfully slammed back down on Colin's foot.
Ah, you'll get it next time, Miller. Try again.
Miller kept on trying. Countless attempts. He kept pushing himself deeper into the trap, finding new approaches. Damn the blocks. No, try the blocks again. Clear some more rubble. Floyd, unable to help physically, is supporting him in spirit at least, cheering him on.
Yay.
And Miller kept going and going and going until he had nothing left. For the next 4 hours he tried. No progress.
Oh my god, 112 hours in this cave. This poor fucking guy.
Miller was exhausted. He couldn't do this on his own, but he was the only one slim enough to get in through the gap. The group decided to concede for now and return to the surface. They would take just a small break, but it looked to everyone like there was a clear way to get this man out. So Miller and Burden crawled back through the mud and the wines of the cave. As they made their way through, the cave was visibly sagging. The ceiling seemed lower. Parts were harder to navigate than before, doubly so with their bruised and rock-shredded hands. They stepped outside and took in the fresh country air. But as their eyes adjusted to the light, they saw something new. A man named Henry Carmichael was standing in front of a sizable crowd of engineers in hard hats and soldiers in military uniform. Now, Henry is the superintendent of the Kentucky Rock Asphalt Company. The engineers are his employees, and the men in military garb are the National Guard. Now, Carmichael has been quietly looking at the situation from afar, and he is thoroughly unimpressed. This is no rescue operation. Once Miller and Co. call it quits...
That's just fucked up. They're trying as hard as they can with what they got.
Carmichael had 2 of his employees do a proper survey of the cave and see if it was suitable to bring in his whole team of men. The 2 surveyors go in. As the passage led down to Floyd, it was showing alarming signs of deterioration. You could see the splitting of the rock above. Boards were slipping out of place or splintering. Small rocks tumbled down the walls. They soon came back with a report. It was not good. Alright, so the following is a recounting of events from one of Carmichael's men, Casey Jones. Casey and another worker spent about an hour in the cave, surveying its condition, looking at the boards, the ceiling, the stability of the walls. Casey continued deeper towards Floyd. He was fighting against his nerves. The shifting of the rock pinged his every instinct to flee. But he could hear Floyd calling out for help in the distance. Summoning all of his courage, he pushed himself on, through the final squeeze and over the ledge that looked down on Floyd. Rubble continued to drop from the ceiling, bouncing all around him. The ceiling felt closer to him than it was before, but maybe that was just the dark playing tricks?
Please, come down.
I can't right now, Floyd, but I will when I get back.
Now, Casey is being pulled in 2 directions.
No, come back, come on. Let's get out of here already.
Please, I'm so thirsty.
Okay.
Casey climbed down next to Floyd.
Quick, drink,
said Casey as he tried to pour some coffee into Floyd's mouth. But Floyd turned his head and kept his lips pursed. The rocks were falling at a faster rate now, the loud cracking out above, sounding like thunder. In that moment, Casey realized what was happening. Floyd was not really asking for a drink. Floyd knew that a cave-in was inevitable. Scared and approaching his 5th day trapped, he was completely at his wit's end. He knew he was about to be trapped in that cave, and he didn't want to be trapped alone.
For God's sake, Casey, come on, you're gonna get us killed.
Stay with me, please. Don't leave.
Casey quickly turned away and scrambled back up the ledge. He made his way back through the final squeeze, his limbs scrambling against the cave walls. It seemed as if everything around him was shrinking. He made it out, and he joined his co-worker. They both turned around and watched on in horror as the yellow of the bowl was being swallowed by the dark. Rubble fell fast and heavy until no light could be seen at all. Rocks blocked out Floyd's panicked cries. The one route to Floyd was now sealed shut, a tomb of rock and dust. It's morning. Burden and Miller jump out of their tents, ready for the day. They're feeling optimistic. Today will be the day that they get Floyd out of there. And they're packing some new tools to help them with the job. Wire to wrap around the wooden blocks, that'll stop them from slipping. And a blowtorch to carve away some of the rock, make the hole a bit bigger. But when Miller got to the turnaround room, all of that optimism left him. The entrance to the squeeze was now just a pile of debris. Miller froze, staring at it for a long while. Then he sighed and did the only thing he could think: make an opening through that rubble. But the more he raked away, the more fell in its place. It was never ending. He persisted, ignoring the danger around him. Thud. A large piece of debris landed on him. Luckily, it was only dried clay. He is uninjured. But recognizing the danger, Miller returned to the surface. 15 minutes later, he emerged from the cave with a bloodied up nose and bruises down his back and shoulders. Burden caught sight and races over to him. Miller just says, "For God's sake, don't let anyone go back in there." Miller leaves the site. Burden doesn't know what to do. Over at the house, Homer is terribly ill and out of action, and that just leaves Gerald. Now he comes marching up when he hears the news, and he is livid. He told the crowds to keep away or the whole thing would cave in, and they didn't listen. Then exactly that thing happened. And what were they supposed to do now? The rest of the day was spent squabbling and bickering over who was to blame. You caused the cave-in. No, you caused the cave-in.
Oh, cave your bloody head in, mate.
And Floyd spent the rest of that day alone.
Alone, hungry, cold. Wait, really? A whole...
The surveyors continued checking the cave throughout the day. At 6 p.m., Carmichael had ordered everyone to an assembly. Gerald took the floor. He was going to give this one last shot. Gerald addressed the crowd.
Listen up. There's death down there. The walls and ceilings are crumbling. Unless you're determined to take the biggest chance you ever took in your life, tell me now and stay outside.
Next, they told all the Gawkers to get the hell out of the cave. Clear off. And so, Gerald went in and out of that cave half a dozen times, working away at the rubble, blocking access to Floyd, leaving only when he suspected another cave-in or to get food and water. Men on the sidelines were supplying new timber. A group of men helped Gerald to prop up the ceiling and guard against further collapse. Gerald toiled away at the pile, eager to reach his friend. He worked steadily, mindful of the danger poised right above him. Bit by bit, he reduced that pile until a light. He called out, yelling updates through the hole.
Bad news. We can't reach you, but hold on. We're coming.
Gerald continued. The pile got smaller still. The gap was large enough now that Gerald thought he might be able to fit.
Okay, that's enough. Floyd, I'm going for now, but when I get back, I'm gonna get you out of there.
Gerald scrambled back out the cave, over to the men, and through panted breaths he said,
"Gather the equipment, and in an hour's time, it's gonna be me and Floyd coming out of that cave."
Oh. Oh.
Gerald entered Sand Cave for his final time. The walls had been reinforced, but mud and water was accumulating everywhere. He waded through it and pressed on past the danger of the sagging ceiling. With determination on his face and a grease gun clutched in his right hand, he scrambled towards Floyd. But before the final squeeze, he stopped. It was all gone. Another cave-in, even worse than the first.
Oh no.
He thought about how he could have been on the other side of that rubble. His mind
got a
raced,
break.
weighing out what to do. He shouted.
Floyd!
As a not-so-subtle reminder of the danger he was in, a rock fell from the ceiling and cracked Gerald across the head. Luckily, just a small one. He felt around for blood and kept shouting.
Floyd!
He could definitely hear a voice, but it was faint. Gerald was scared that this was Floyd's last shot at rescue, and he threw himself against the pile and pulled it away with finger and nail, launching the debris behind him with force, tearing at the pile like a man on fire. Dust bellowed, rocks flew, and he kept shouting out for Floyd as he went.
Floyd!
Until finally, the cave had had enough. It let loose a large, jagged rock aimed straight at Gerald, striking him on his back. Gerald stumbled out of that cave, injured and defeated.
Oh no. He's not gonna make it out alive. The story's
Only
getting
after the
Anderson
cave-ins did they
dying.
start to think about all of the things that they could have done.
Wait, why didn't we rig a portable telephone line? That would have been incredibly simple here in 1925. Yeah!
The worst thing you can do is think about what you should have or could have done, because there's no point in thinking about it. You should think about what you can do now.
Why have we been running in and out to deliver updates?
Why didn't we give him an AM radio? He could have had something to listen to and receive messages of support from the public.
Wait, why don't we rig up a tarpaulin so we could lift his torso up so he
Wait,
wouldn't
would a radio work that deep underground?
be slowly dying of exposure?
Oh god, why didn't we run a feeding tube? That's also a technology we have in 1925.
All too late. Now what? The one route to get to Floyd is closed forever. That meant two options. Number one, capitulation. Surrender him to the cave.
No, never give up.
Or number two, dig down from directly above Floyd. Now, the prospect of digging
That was
from
one of
above
my
seemed almost
ideas.
fanciful. At least, it did in the beginning. But luckily, they had some help. Owing to Miller's reporting, Floyd had become practically the most famous person in the country. The rescue had become a high priority for the governor of Kentucky. Lieutenant General Denhart enters the scene. He's been updated on the situation, and following shortly behind him is a small army of miners and engineers. He declared to the despondent crowd, "Gentlemen, I am here on behalf of the governor. The purse strings of Kentucky are open. Take this blank check and bring that man out alive." Floyd, in that cold, wet confine, could not have imagined the scale of the operation that was going on 55 feet above him. Authorities assumed control of Colin's rescue. Denhart gave Carmichael control over the site, and Carmichael raced to get to work. Carmichael
Holy shit.
rallied up his men. His fleet of expensive high-tech machinery. Professional groups were brought in from all across the state. No longer was this the ad hoc effort of a few individuals. It was a professional and organized rescue. No more squabbling and standing around. Everyone knew what they had to do, and they were working as fast as they could. But just as hopes were rising, they were once again dashed against the rocks. They had all of this state-of-the-art machinery shipped in and assembled by the engineers and rearing to go. And it was all worthless. See, the problem is, the cave drew air into it. These diesel-powered engines pumped out enormous volumes of choking exhaust. Within a day's operation, the cave would be filled with carbon monoxide and Floyd would be dead from asphyxiation.
You know what? It wouldn't be a bad way to go.
Just as quickly as solutions would arise, the cave would parry them away. It refused to let this man go. This useless machinery was now blocking the path to Floyd, which means they would have to spend the next couple of hours disassembling all of it and moving it away. Because they're about to dig a 55-foot pit the old-fashioned way, by hand. Carmichael's expertise was in quarries, but the principles transferred over to caving and digging holes. He did some quick back-of-the-envelope math. I've got 75 men, they can dig at 2 feet per hour, and we have to go 55 feet deep. That means we can get to those men in roughly 30 hours, give or take. Now, is it possible that Floyd could survive for another 30 hours? Absolutely. Let's go. 4 men started at great pace. The soil was soft and easy to dig. But as they got deeper, it became more difficult. The deeper the shaft, the narrower it became. Soon, instead of 4 men, they could only fit 2. Carmichael understood well that this was a race against time, so it was important that these 2 men were working at full capacity. Carmichael had a queue of men on the sidelines, poised to dig, and the moment that either of the 2 men in the hole slowed down, oi, they pulled them out and threw in a new one. Nonetheless, progress slowed the deeper they went. About a quarter of the way down, they reached rock, and one of the men would have to work a pickaxe, leaving only one to shovel. At this depth, rubble couldn't just be flung into a pile. They had to start loading it into buckets, which would have to be pulled to the surface on ropes. Then men outside were ready with wheelbarrows to cart that downfield. Time passed. Hours passed. Night went to day. The day was hot. This was yet another problem, because it's early February, there's tons of ice still in the ground, and its exposure to the midday sun was causing it to become unstable, and the ground was becoming sodden as a result. Progress slowed once again, just half a foot per hour. There was little for Colin's friends and family to do, but watch the clock and pray. Interestingly though, there were a lot of people on the sidelines. Floyd wouldn't have believed the scene above him. Practically everything but a Ferris wheel. Food stalls were set up to cash in on the crowds. Families and church groups picnicked in the field.
Thank God.
Despite prohibition, moonshiners showed up.
You know what? If I was dying in a cave, I just want people above me to be fucking just having the time of their life.
To sell jugs with all of those X's written on them. There was even a bloody juggler. I won't stop juggling till he's free. And old man Lee was there, walking around, shaking his jar, and soliciting donations.
Fuck his father.
But where were Homer and Burden and Miller during all of this? Okay, let's back up a bit. People did not properly understand exactly how Floyd was trapped, and the news didn't help much either. So the obvious question started to arise. Why hasn't he been rescued yet? Just clear some gravel or pull a rope. How is this so hard? Motive was attributed.
I heard they didn't even want to have him rescued at all.
I heard that they're doing all of this for
no, it's like a Twitter or Reddit post. Oh no.
publicity.
And Lee's activity of soliciting donations, remember from before, further inflamed rumors.
I bet Floyd isn't even trapped in there.
Give me 1 second. I didn't realize how dark it was getting outside, that my VTube model wasn't being picked up anymore.
These were all real rumors, and they got worse.
You know what? I've heard he comes out at night, and then he just goes back in the morning.
Other rumors included,
I heard that after Floyd went into the cave, someone murdered him.
Others said,
I think they're withholding food and water from him so he dies.
This whole thing is a fraud.
As time went on, it was harder and harder to ignore the hoax claims. Then, people started to form righteous mobs, claiming the whole thing was a fraud, and they started to get nasty. In fact, 2 people even went to the telegraph office and pretended to be Floyd, sending telegrams to his mother, who, by the way, died several years ago. Here's what it said.
Oh my god.
Quote, "Please contradict statements that I am buried alive in Sand Cave. Stop. Tell mother I am all right. Stop. Am coming home. Stop. Floyd Collins." Naturally, the AP published these telegrams unquestioningly, and now word is out to the press that he isn't actually in the cave after all. That made the authorities look foolish, and it could not go on. So, a hasty court-martial was arranged, and Homer, Miller, and Gerald were summoned. They hold one session on Monday and another on Tuesday. Lee and everyone else is cleared of charges, a retraction is written, and things carry on. The men at the dig were busy as ever.
I'm sorry? It's been 2 days now without food and water. Floyd is probably dead.
They set up pumps to mitigate the water in the shaft. Men continued working in shifts and carrying away the earth. Here they are with strips of lumber to shore up the walls. They were just short of halfway, and their rate of clearing material had slowed to a mere 4 inches per hour. It was at that point Carmichael went, "Yeah, okay, sod the cavers, try the dynamite." But it hardly made a dent, and it risked causing the shaft to collapse. But despite all of these challenges, there was an optimism in the air, because everyone was keen for their turn to dig. And because they had one more thing to latch onto. He is probably still alive.
What?
Now, how do they know that? Okay, so remember that light bulb around Floyd's neck?
Oh, no fucking way.
Well, it's powered by a simple copper wire. Bare copper wire is subject to very minute fluctuations in resistance. So, an engineer rigs up a radio amplifier to this wire to read the current and see those small fluctuations. There they were. About 20 per minute. The rate of steady breathing. As his chest expands and contracts, they can read it from this device.
He's alive?
And so, they kept going. And going.
Bro, this motherfucker is living. He has the willpower. Like, this motherfucker's not gonna die. He's like, nah.
And going. 30 hours was the original estimate. Now 144 hours had come and gone, and they were only at 44 feet. Then rain fell. Rain that mixed with dirt to make mud, much of which then froze to make ice. Ice which expanded and damaged the integrity of the shaft walls.
Oh no.
Slowing down with every hour, they continued. Many more hours passed, and they were getting close. But it was now 15 days since Floyd was first stuck in that cave, and people had mostly lost hope. That excitement in the newspapers was tempering down. Visitors began clearing out from Cave City. Many still held on to hope, but their final lifeline, that light bulb, had burnt out. And it wasn't possible to do any more readings on the radio amplifier without it. No one knew if Floyd was still alive.
There's no way he's still alive. There's just no way.
Another 51 hours would pass before, finally, they reached the 60-foot depth.
I'm in. Chisel.
A chisel is handed down at 1:30 p.m. on Monday, February 16th. Sand Cave would open once again. Floyd had been pinned in that cave for 17 days. 12 spent without food, survivable. 12 without water, likely not survivable.
No.
The light bulb, a vital source of warmth, burned out 4 days ago. But maybe the moisture from the dripping of the cave walls provided him with some sustenance? There are stories of people surviving harsher extremes. A few final rocks were moved to allow Ed Brenner to squeeze in.
That's terrifying to think about, that people have survived fall wars. Like, that's just...
Everybody stood by, absolutely silent, peering into that hole. Ed scanned the opening with his flashlight, listening carefully for movement. Then, head first, he worked his way in. The flashlight reflected dimly off the rock walls, but then caught the reflection of something gold. That golden flicker was not the light bulb. It was the glistening of light reflecting off a gold tooth. His mouth hung open. Floyd was dead. Brenner was helped out of the cave and he delivered the news.
Dead.
My God, look at all of them. They tried so hard to save this man. In the end, wow, this is just heartbreaking.
A coroner would later state that Floyd succumbed to exposure.
Yeah.
And that they had missed him by just 3 days. About the same time that the light bulb had gone out.
So the light bulb
When the light bulb
barely
went
keeping
out,
light.
so too did his one source of warmth. If it had held out, Collins might have as well. But what would they do now with the body? The shaft walls were ready to fall inwards, and risking lives to remove a corpse was seen as just irresponsible. So it was decided by the authorities. Floyd will stay in that cave.
Oh, that's just... You know what? If a cave killed me, keep my corpse there. It earned the right. It earned it.
Now this did not sit well with the family, but what could they do? The next day, they planned the funeral. The town emptied of people, and the shaft, with Floyd at the bottom, was filled back in. But that's not quite the end of the story. But if you hang on for this long, keep holding on, because things are going to continue to get interesting. But first, let me do a wrap-up of where everyone is and all that stuff. Context. The Collins family already had financial hardship. Lee Collins wasn't able to raise much money from the donations. After the crowds cleared, he was seen searching the site, scanning for empty bottles that he could resell. But the owner of the land, B. Doyle, and supposed friend of Floyd, was wholly unsympathetic. He put up a sign that said, "Floyd's dead body, right this way. Come on now, take a look. Only 50 cents a gander." It's 100 years later, B's dead. Let's call it even. Also, remember those claims of Kentucky being an open purse? Well, the state reneged on the deal. They refused to pay many of the rescuers, and most of them went home without the promised pay, many having sacrificed a week's worth of wages from
that's fucked up.
missing their regular work. Some of them did make some money out of the situation, though. They signed on to a type of touring theatre called vaudeville. They roamed the country, telling their personal stories of their attempted rescue. Miller received the best offer out of anyone, however. How about 50 grand to do the Chautauqua lecture circuit? It'll be worth nearly $1 million in 2023 money. He declined. He stayed loyal to the Louisville Courier, continuing his work there for several
This guy's an absolute chat of a
more
person.
years. Although, bit of a perk, he won the 1926 Pulitzer Prize for his reporting on Floyd Collins. Okay, so back to the brother, Homer. He needed money and he agreed to do that vaudeville circuit. He stood on stage and shared with the crowd stories about growing up with his brother, Floyd, and detailing out the tragedy. But Homer made it known why he was up here on stage trying to get money. He had a mission.
I kept thinking of Floyd lying in the muck, where he had suffered beyond our power to imagine. I would never have peace of mind if he remained there.
He wanted the money to dig Floyd up and get him out of that cave.
So much.
A couple of months later, he had it. Alright, so back to Floyd. April 17th, 1925. Homer and a team of excavators. They began to dig. Within a week, they had arrived at Floyd. But instead of coming down the same passage near Floyd's head, they approached from the other side where his foot was. It allowed them to remove the rock that trapped him in place. They lifted him up from his tomb and laid him down on the fresh air above. A couple of days later, Floyd was given an honored place at the family cemetery, next to his mother. A stalagmite was taken from Sand Cave, carved with his name, and used as a headstone. And there he lay. No, that's not actually where it ends.
What?
Okay, this is where it gets weird. 2 years later, 1927, the Collins family's finances hadn't much improved. A dentist, Harry B. Thomas, walked up to the property and made Lee an offer. Sell this property to me, and I will give you $10,000. Now, Homer begged him not to, because at the time, the government was starting to buy up tons of land in the area and turn it into national parks. They had to pay at a very competitive rate. But Lee was becoming a bit old and senile by this point, and frankly, it's doubtful that he cared about Homer or Floyd or anyone else for that matter. It's 100 years later, he's dead now, let's call it even. So, the point is, in this land sale with Thomas, Lee agreed to a very odd clause. And that clause said, everything on that property belongs to Thomas. And should he wish, for example, to exhume a dead body and re-embalm it and put it on display in something really tacky like a glass coffin inside a...
No fucking way. No, that's... This is just fucked up. This is just not okay.
Then that would be his prerogative.
Wait, you're telling me this dentist-looking ass motherfucker dug up this guy's corpse? You know, this guy who suffered his last 15 days. He just suffered and he died in this cave. They get him out of there. He can rest. And you dig this motherfucker back up and put him in the cave he was trapped in and died in. Bro, I would be waking up from...
Lee signed yes. And Thomas did exactly that. Doyle made Floyd's corpse a tourist attraction. That's right. 2 bits of gander, come and wonder at the incredible dead man who died in a cave. But to add insult to injury, it worked. Visitors returned to...
I can't believe this shit happened.
To gawk morbidly at Floyd.
I don't know why.
Within a few months, Thomas had turned Lee's failing farm into a successful business. The Collins family, naturally, is appalled by the situation, and they immediately object. They try a number of times to get Floyd returned to them, including through the legal system. But somehow, incredibly, the judge ruled in Thomas's favor. And so, there he lay for the next 2 years.
the
Minecraft cave was not done with Floyd. Until someone hatched a plan. 2 years later, it's midnight, outside Sand Cave. Footsteps can be heard rustling through the brush. Now, we don't know who these 2 men are, but we know why they are here. To rob a grave. They sneak inside and clamber over the rocks in the darkness. Reaching Floyd's casket, they undo the latch and throw open the lid. There is his shriveled body. They throw him in a gunny sack, and they race off into the night. For 800 yards they carry dear Floyd, like a couple of sweaty Santas about to deliver a really terrible Christmas present. Panting, out of breath, knowing that they're going to get caught any minute, they reach the Kentucky Green River hillside. There's no time. With a 1, 2, 3, they launch his body towards the river, and Floyd goes sailing into the air, up, into the starlit beyond, and landing in a bush. Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
The 2 men flee from the scene.
Bro, even after death, this guy can't catch a fucking break. Like, just put this guy 6 feet in a hole and just let him be. He suffered enough.
Now, the next
I feel
morning,
bad for fucking corpse.
Thomas notices that the body of Floyd is somewhat missing, and he contacts the authorities. The police come, They dust the casket for fingerprints, and bloodhounds are given Floyd's scent and let loose into the hillside. A few hours later, they manage to find him, splayed out in a big shrub down by the river. But this time, with a leg missing, that same one that was trapped under the rock. So, despite his protests, it had been amputated.
Bro, if there's an afterlife, I hope this guy's enjoying every minute of it because, like,
Neither the leg nor the culprits were ever found. And while it would be nice to think that this was some well-intentioned duo that did this out of the kindness of their hearts to free Floyd, it's much more likely that it was an act of vandalism because Floyd was simply too much of a hot tourist attraction. The following day, Floyd was cast back into the cave, back into his box, and it was covered by a metal lid, surrounded by a metal chain, and locked with a padlock. He was now more trapped than he had ever been. This cave had spun fate once again to make sure that its victim would never leave. And so, time passed. Floyd's body would continue to decay. The rot from his body would eventually rot the casket too, and every decade or so, it would need to be replaced. A few years later, he was no longer on display, but even then, he remained in that box for many more years. By 1989, Floyd's Cave was purchased by Mammoth Cave National Park, and it was closed to the public. There would be no more visitors. The entrance itself to Floyd's Cave was closed with a steel gate and bolted, then welded shut. But the Collins family never gave up objecting to Collins' body being left in the cave. And here is where the story ends. In 1989, at the Collins' request, the National Park Service ventured into Floyd's Cave. Continuing on a more than 60-year tradition, a team of people worked over the course of several days to remove him from the cave. They took him out, left the cave, locked it behind them, and laid Floyd to rest at the Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery. After 64 years in Sand Cave, he is now finally.
I know, I consider this the good ending. Even if he died, at the end of it all, he managed to leave the cave and it didn't hold him hostage forever.
At peace. The end. Thank you to Wendigoon as Floyd.
If you don't let me out, I'm going to hire a gang of hitmen to come to your house and kill your family.
Samito as Homer.
The BTS meal McDonald's bag that has
I'm
McDonald's
hungry.
and BTS. Shut the fuck up and eat some BTS, bro.
Ordinary Things as Miller.
I'm enthusiastic, but would ultimately duck out the back exit.
Rusty Cage as Gerald.
Oh, well, hello there. Haven't seen y'all in a while. Welcome to my new home.
And many kudos as Burden.
Hey, buddy. You right down there?
I can.
You a little sleepy?
I can. Yeah.
We get your coffee?
Cold and
Little cup of Joe? Little cup of Joseph?
I'm starting.
A cup of Joseph from a little sleepy guy?
And do not forget, World of Tanks, World of Tanks. None of this would have happened if Floyd had got World.
This was a really good video, but the ending, I just feel nothing but pity for this guy. This guy just could not catch a break to save his life. Even through everything, he just couldn't. Damn. What a shame for him. What a shame.